we say no to hundreds of good ideas as a ministry here at Sight and Sound, and we say yes to those few God ideas. Because
Yeah.
those few God ideas are going to take years to actually make them work. The shaft kind of blows away, with good ideas, and we stick to the God ideas. And that the Lord does those kinds of things to say, this is a God idea, stick to this one, follow it through. It's going to be
The
hard.
surprising
Yeah.
organic moments where the Holy Spirit, gives you
Mhm.
something that
Being
you
spirit led.
Hi, and welcome to Life Off Screen. I'm Dan Ruppel, and this is my lovely wife, Peggy Ruppel. We have a wonderful conversation with some friends that we made about 10 years ago. They're wonderful people. You're going to enjoy hearing from them. I'm talking about Josh and Kristen Enck. Josh is the Chief Story Officer and President of Sight and Sound.
And Kristen, his wife, is actually the daughter of the founders of Sight and Sound and is co-producer in most of his projects. And one we're going to highlight today is an exceptional film coming out, and it's called A Great Awakening. On the heels of the 250th anniversary of our country, it couldn't be better timing, and it is profoundly moving.
I think you're going to really enjoy this conversation, so let's jump right in. Josh and Kristen, welcome. So happy to see you guys.
Yes,
Thank you,
wonderful to
Dan.
have you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Peggy. It's great to be here. Great to be a part of your ministry.
Yes.
Yes,
And
yes.
Josh and I had breakfast just a week ago
Mhm.
in Nashville, but our wonderful wives weren't able to join us for that. So now it's good to have the two of you with us. In a little bit, we want to talk about your great movie coming out, Great Awakening. Peggy and I saw it twice,
Yes.
and we're getting ready to see it again in about a week with some of our church staff. It is such a remarkable film, and we want to dive deeper into that. We'll get to that in a little bit. Peggy and I had the joy of I think it was about 8 years ago, maybe 9. We were in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. We went to Sight and Sound, and we were kind of blown away of just the spectacle of it.
Yeah.
Josh, for those who have not been to either of your theaters in Branson or in Lancaster, what will they experience?
Man, probably the same thing that I experienced when I was, just a teenager coming to Sight and Sound for the first time back in 1995, walking into that auditorium and seeing this massive 300-foot wraparound stage with, live animals and 50 plus actors, and just not just seeing the Bible coming to life on stage, but feeling something different in the atmosphere. Our heart is to move people's hearts towards truth through the power of story, to bring the Bible to life on stage, not just by what we do, but with, who we are. And so it's actually really exciting because this year we're celebrating our 50th anniversary at Sight and
know that.
Sound. So yeah, 2026. It's a big year.
Yes.
Well, Kristen, your parents actually started Sight and Sound. Can you tell us a little about that story? Because I understand it was in 1976 and it was this multimedia traveling show.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot more backstory, but without getting into even all of that, I'll pick up with what you just said. And that was, yeah, my dad, he was and still is a photographer and was taking scenic photos throughout the country. And people were requesting well, I guess they were traveling at the time to show his slideshow with music and different elements they were implementing at the time. And it was just taking a pretty heavy toll on them as far as all of the packing up and loading and unloading. And so,
They were starting a family too.
Right.
So the kids were little.
And
Logistics and
that's when they had the idea to possibly explore the idea of, rather than them travel, have the customers come to them. And so that's when back in 1976, they started what we called then the Living Waters Theater, which slowly progressed from there. They were implementing some live actors, just different elements, which obviously grew into what it is today, up here on the hill. So yeah, there's a lot more to that story. I don't know how much you want to know, but
But her
really quick,
her
yeah.
dad is such a visionary, and
Yeah.
her mom is such a steady anchor in their relationship. And they always say, Glenn was the throttle and Shirley was the brake, and without either one, they would have either gone off a cliff or not moved out of the parking lot. And so
Yeah.
it was
Wow.
amazing how God used them and their personalities to work. and to partner.
And
And
how
Glenn
they
had a
could see the
very,
vision of scaling it up the way they
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
yeah, and that is really, Glenn Eshelman. He shot, panoramic photography, and there's more of a widescreen kind of approach to even his photography and his slides. And then you can see how that just then was implemented into live theater with
Yes.
the very wide stage and, the word immersive has really been a part of our DNA and brand since the beginning. And so,
It
Yes.
truly is too. It's
Mhm.
very immersive. You walk into that wonderful, beautiful theater, and it's like you're immersed right in it,
yeah,
in the middle of it.
I had no idea of the scale.
Yeah.
The
right.
scale was overwhelming. Um, State of the art, everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The sound, the actors, it was 3D in a powerful way.
There's a joke around here. We sometimes call it sight, sound, and smell because of all the animals. So it's truly immersive in every way, shape, and form. And
You
so,
got that right. You got
It's
that right.
funny.
Josh, were you already interested in theater? What drew you to join up with Sight and Sound?
yeah. So, well, ever since I was a kid, probably about 12 years old, mom and dad got a RCA VHS video camera for Christmas one year. And I picked that camera up and I never put it down. I started to do movies with my buddies and then started to do school projects, making video production. And back then, video editing was not nonlinear. It was very challenging. But I learned how to cut films together. And I just remember feeling, and I wasn't a Christian at the time. I grew up in an incredible home with mom and dad who loved each other. Uh, but it wasn't a Christ-centered home. But I just remember feeling like this spark of excitement every time I would think about a movie idea. And so after
Mhm.
high school, 19 years, I got saved. And it really radically changed my life. And so I started to check out film schools in New York and Pittsburgh, and nothing felt right. Now I know that that was the Holy Spirit, guiding and directing me. I had a chance to be in front of the camera. I thought maybe I would do acting. And my mom told me one day, she said, there's a little theater up the road called Sight and Sound. She said the guy who founded it uh, took her senior portrait in high school back in 1967. And that portrait I've seen it my whole life. Um, it's a beautiful portrait of my mom, a senior picture.
Mhm.
And she said the man that took that picture started this thing called Sight and Sound. And I said, Mom, I said, I'm not interested in theater. I don't know much about theater. Um, I didn't attend the school plays and musicals. I didn't know much about it. But like I said at the beginning of our conversation, when I came up for the interview, I walked into the theater and it was in 1995 and they were doing the Noah show for the first time. And I walked into the building scene when they're building the ark and I felt something different. And that began my journey of, um, sensing, what's God's leading, because I felt
Mhm.
a peace there that I didn't feel when I was pursuing film on the outside,
Yeah.
on my own. And so that's when I started in 1995 as a stagehand,
Wow.
pushing sets around in the dark. And
Yeah.
Well, tell me about this red four-wheeler.
all right, we still have that red four-wheeler.
You
Do
Um,
do.
you?
oh yeah, and so I'll start, and then you can pick up from there.
Sure.
But I'm 4.5 years older than Kristen, and so I wasn't really looking for a girlfriend at the time because I was just got saved as a Christian. I was really on fire for the Lord, but I was here for a couple of years at Sight and Sound, and I actually chose to demote myself from the stage to the animal department and working with the animals, training horses. I was just a little bit more used to like a 7 to 5 and work outside with your hands environment, not so much show hours. And um, and this really cute young lady kept showing up, and I got to know her a little bit, and we became friends. But my eyes weren't really opened yet because I wasn't looking at any kind of a relationship, especially the boss's daughter. And so, but then one day, she showed up on a red four-wheeler and it just something clicked and I saw her.
Blonde hair in the wind.
Yes, I still know the sweater she was wearing and I
Mhm.
just looked at her and I thought, "Oh my goodness. Like this is not just a beautiful woman, but somebody who just is so kind and has like the love of the Lord all over her, and very different than, some of the people that I've known prior to Christianity. And I just thought, man, I got to get to know her. And so the rest is history. And then fast forward to the year 2000 when we got married, and I drove her into the reception on a red four-wheeler, and
That
and
is
I just
great.
was thankful. I was just thankful that her bridal, what do you call them, the
The
veil and the dress didn't get caught up in the tire. That would have been a
Yeah.
horrible ending, but that
Josh,
didn't
tell me
happen.
somebody videoed it.
Oh yeah, we
We
got,
had some video.
Good.
Yes.
and we do still have a
Classic.
red Honda. I will not let that
Yeah.
thing go.
Yeah.
That is the
That is
best.
great.
Yeah, yeah, the Lord's good.
You know what? The way you described Kristen is exactly what I felt about Peggy from like the second we met. I thought she was the cutest girl on the planet, cutest
Yeah,
girl I ever saw. But what really drew me to her was she was so kind-hearted.
yeah,
But the other part, most importantly, and it's what sustained us through almost 48 years of marriage, is her dedication to the Lord. All she
yeah.
wants to do is leave it all in the field for the kingdom.
That's
And
awesome.
that's what really, really drew me. And like I said, it charted the course for our entire marriage. Josh, since I first met you, I think it was on the phone. It wasn't in person yet. I think it was about 10 years ago. But you've always talked about, and you just referenced it, this passion for film,
Uh,
film. Was your first foray into film when you filmed the stage show of Sight and Sound and put it on a platform?
no, actually, that wasn't. I stayed interested in film, while I was working here at Sight and Sound, and then her dad discovered my desire to tell stories, and so he invited me into the script writing process on a show that he was doing at the time, and then I ended up going into the producing group and writing scripts and directing stage productions and producing them, and I fell in love with storytelling, period. It didn't
Yes.
matter if it was on the stage or on the screen or, from a pulpit. Honestly, it was the, conveying truthful moments became the thing. How can I move people's hearts towards Christ through the power of story? And so I was completely content doing stage productions, but I was still toying around with some film stuff on the side. And I did a film competition called On the Lot. It was led by Steven Spielberg. It
Oh, I
was,
remember that.
Yes.
yeah, it was a reality TV show.
Yes.
It was like a pilot. It didn't really take off, but I entered that.
Early
And
2000s.
early 2000s, we were only married for a couple of years. We are having kids, but out of 20,000 entries, I got top 100 with a short film, and then got invited to do a second film, and that was the top 50, and I didn't quite make that cut. But what that did was it allowed Kristen and I to really evaluate, like, would I leave Sight and Sound and go do film full time?
Mhm.
And kind of went around the circle and said, no, this is where we feel led to put our roots down. And it was almost like putting Isaac on the altar, It was saying, hey, this film thing, you know, if the Lord brings it, it'll be in his timing, it won't be on mine. And so I settled in, and I think I always say together we produced, because she's my co-producer. We produced 3 stage shows after that film competition, and we're just fine. But then when COVID came, that's when we really started to consider feature-length films. But yes, we did film our stage productions, multi-camera. But I don't know if I would. I don't know. That wasn't feature. That wasn't narrative feature film
Right.
to
Yes.
me.
Yes.
Mhm.
Is capturing what was already on stage. So I don't really maybe include that necessarily.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's been awesome. It was awesome when the Lord commissioned us to do feature films without it being my initiative and my idea. It
Mhm.
was
Right.
the
And that
Lord's
you could
time.
do it together. That
Mhm.
Oh
that
yeah,
is that's remarkable. That has been the gift in our life as well, just to be able to
yeah.
partner all the way through and all sorts of levels. I want to mention too. You talked about those powerful moments that you were seeing in the stage production, these transformative moments that, which I believe is what you brought to the screen. So that's, you can see how that was embedded in you back then.
Yeah.
Can I ask you to tell two stories about that?
Sure.
In the theatrical performances, the one about the family that lingered longer after the Joseph story,
Oh yeah, yeah,
and then also the man who brought up the ragged ticket stub.
yeah, absolutely. It was the stage production Joseph, and that was 2010. I say this all the time. We can't take credit for these stories. You know, they've been changing lives for thousands of years already. We're just commissioned to bring them to life on stage in a dramatic way.
Yes.
So we praise God and we give him the glory for all that we do here.
Yeah.
And it was because of that posture that we take without ego. It allows for an atmosphere to linger after the shows that is just as powerful as watching the show, in real time. And after the Joseph show, um, I saw a bunch of people sitting up in the race section, and it was a whole line of people. And the patriarch of the family, I could tell he was the leader of the family. He was the older gentleman, and he was just crying. He was just saying, "Would you please forgive me? Would you please forgive me?" And he was literally having a reconciliation moment with his family after
Wow.
that show, because that show is so powerful of a father and a son and the power of forgiveness between father and son. And so the Holy Spirit led that man to do that right there on the spot. That'll always stick with me. I'll never forget that moment.
Your ticket stub
The ticket
story.
stub story, well, it's not my story,
Oh,
but
okay.
I know about it. It's there's a gentleman that showed up to our theater one time and he pulled out no, Behold the Lamb.
Oh, mm-hmm.
One of the very first stage productions that her dad did was Behold the Lamb, and it's the life of Christ, the life of Jesus. And this gentleman came to the Jesus show, which was 2018, and he brought a ticket stub with him and pulled it out, and it was from Behold the Lamb from like 2 decades before, and he said, "I was
Wow.
saved. I was saved this day."
Oh,
Oh,
So it's
wow.
we get that quite a bit.
yes, yes.
We get
That's
that
so
quite a bit.
rewarding,
Yeah.
to you do, you do what God's directing you to do. You put your best effort, you gather the greatest talent around
Yeah.
you to tell this story, but it's only the Holy Spirit can bear fruit. And it's
It's just
just
entertainment otherwise.
exactly, Josh.
And we experienced that. People did not rush out of the theater.
No, they
They
lingered.
sat, they lingered, they were
Yeah,
talking to each other
yeah,
because it was such an experience.
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Praise the
Okay,
Lord.
let's
Yeah.
talk about A Great Awakening.
Yes.
Whoa, like I always said at the beginning, we just were overwhelmed by how great it was. For those that don't know, it's a story that chronicles the friendship of evangelist George Whitefield and, of course, one of the founding fathers, Benjamin Franklin. How did that story first come to you?
Man. Yeah, it's a really cool story, actually. I'll be brief with the intro of that, but um, after our first feature film, I Heard the Bells, which was really low budget, under the radar, but it ended up climbing to number 2 in the box office and doing quite well. And it really affirmed our decision to bring stories to life on screen, to tell true stories of people who changed the world because Christ first changed them. Like that's our motto for films. Figures from history that changed the world because Christ first changed them.
Mm.
And we started with a Christmas story and the true story behind I Heard the Bells on Christmas Day, a very famous Christmas song, Christmas Carol. And it did well, but I remember after that film, Kristen saying, she's like, "Hon, I love the film. It's a strong film." She said, "But your next one has got to be more bold and more powerful." I'm putting words in your mouth right now. But she really called me up.
Wow.
She didn't call me out because I feel like I Heard the Bells was the right tone for the entry, into that
Mhm, mhm.
medium. But she was in my ear the whole time, and so uh, we were 3 years out from the 250th anniversary of our nation, and I knew I wanted to do a film on liberty, but I wanted to be the Christ's definition of liberty. The liberty that's on that Liberty Bell that rings out, and proclaims liberty throughout all the land. Because the word liberty is going to be used quite a bit this year in 2026.
Mhm.
and everybody wants it, but there's different definitions of it. So I knew we wanted to do a film that really talked about the liberty that only comes through Jesus Christ.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I combined that with Americana 250th, and I was like, well, it has to be about George Washington. Like there's the painting of him kneeling at Valley Forge. It's above our fireplace. She gave it to me as a gift years before, and I was really excited about that. And but it was probably 10 months in that I just kept feeling this, not even writer's block, but just not like a lack of inspiration. I started to kind of make things sound really strong and good, but they weren't really that strong. And I was really frustrated. Well, unbeknownst to me, Kristen lined up an Airbnb for me at Valley Forge, near Valley Forge.
Mhm.
And she said, I booked this place for you for 2 nights, 3 days. Take the dog, get away with the Lord, and just seek Him. And that's not typical. Like, we have 4 kids at home. We're busy. She needs me at home. She doesn't usually kick me out. So, but I actually cried, I think, because of how much support and love I felt from you,
Mhm.
with doing that. I don't feel like our brides are supposed to just push us along and then help us out. I think that they're in the yoke with us and we do it together. And so my first calling in life is to serve my bride. And that creates the platform then to launch into the vocation and the calling. And that's a perfect picture of that. So I went away, and it was kind of lonely. The first 24 hours, I was kind of lonely, to be honest. Just me, my dog, a fireplace, and Father, what do you want us to do? And it was about day two, I think, day two that I was seeking the Lord and I felt the Lord speak. And he said, I heard the Lord speak, and he said, Joshua, you had Liberty right, you had your Georges wrong. And I started to think
Yeah.
about other Georges. And I remembered my writing partner, Jeff Bender, his favorite person in history is George Whitefield.
Mm.
And so I knew that, and I started to, I had Wi-Fi in this little cabin. And so I started to Google George Whitefield, and I just about fell off my chair with how excited I was in my spirit to
Yes.
to tell this story, especially when I found out that he had a partnership with Ben Franklin. Because for me, half my life, I was a non-Christian. And I knew if we do a biopic on Reverend Whitfield, it just might not catch, people's attention. But a story about Ben Franklin and
Yes.
George Whitfield, I felt like the Lord was saying, that's the partnership I want you to have. So right away, I'm like, there was a revelation before the revolution. Um, it's time to put Whitfield back in the pulpit again and Ben back in his press. And all these things started to flow. And I came
Yes.
home really excited.
Mhm.
And you can share some of when I came home as well.
Yeah. Um, I mean, I think obviously when there's something of the Lord, you just know in your spirit that it's right. And it was not long after that. I mean, it's kind of a long story. I will try and condense it really briefly. Um, but he was sharing this with me, and it was like a day or two later, um, after you were home, and we were at the kitchen table, and I recalled something, and it was such a random memory. So for me to recall it, and I wasn't even a part of this memory. That's why it was so strange. And I know it was the Lord, but 2 years prior, I
Yeah.
believe. So 2 years prior to him kind of discovering this whole story of George Whitfield, our oldest daughter was taking some classes through Oxford University in England, and she was young when she had to travel over there. So he joined her, and while you were there, they visited Pembroke College, which is where Whitfield would have studied and attended. And while he was there, he early one morning called back home here to his writing partner, Jeff Bender, and said, Hey, I'm standing in
Your
this
hero's
congregation,
chapel.
yeah, in your hero's chapel. And he said, just feel led that you should pray. And so my daughter, or our daughter, for whatever reason, again, we'll call it the Lord, decided
Yeah.
to record this prayer. And Jeff prayed this long prayer just about another awakening happening in this country, and that the voice of
George
George
Whitfield be heard
Whitfield would
again.
be heard again. That was 2 years before this idea.
Yeah.
So
Oh
it
my
was
goodness.
kind of long forgotten. Like I don't even know that
She had to bring it to my attention.
right. So I said, hey, I said, go back into your photos and find that video of Jeff praying. And when we pulled up that prayer, I mean, it was just like, it was unbelievable. So we knew that the Lord was starting something even before it was a thought in his mind.
Yeah.
And it was just, and there's been so much of that. It's just been, well,
Yeah.
you like to call it the breadcrumb trail of faith, where
Breadcrumb
it's
trail of
just
faith.
one confirmation after another of the Lord showing the steps to this film, and
Yeah.
even since the film has been wrapped. So
And also not chasing trends or what's popular in media or a formula for a successful movie. Those are all good ideas, but we say no to hundreds of good ideas as a ministry here at Sight and Sound, and we say yes to those few God ideas because
yeah,
those few God ideas are going to take years to actually make them work.
Yes.
And so the shaft kind of blows away, with good ideas, and we stick to the God ideas. And that the Lord does those kinds of things to say, this is a God idea, stick to this one, follow it through. It's going to be
Those
hard.
surprising
yeah.
organic moments where the Holy Spirit, shoots you
Mhm.
something that
Being
you,
spirit led.
yeah, being spirit led. That's
Yeah.
remarkable. And God's timing that we come out in the
Mhm.
250th anniversary,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that you had, you're done producing it now.
Yeah.
And I think about, I've seen a lot of biopics and docs that talk about, but none that I've seen that explore America's spiritual and moral foundation that
Yeah.
was happening before the American Revolution, and
Yeah.
the choice of having as God would have it, the two characters playing off
Yeah.
one another, you know,
Mhm.
and that they had a relationship and they were so different.
Yeah.
And just what God did. Anyway, it was really, really powerful.
Yeah.
But boy, do I
Thank you.
love how, as we call this life off screen, because there's so much, it's so much dynamics happen that bring it to life. And oftentimes God uses us together, right?
Oh,
As
yeah.
help meets for each other. It's so beautiful
Oh,
that
yeah.
that would remind you of it. But I maybe will direct this to you as well as Kristen, if any wisdom on working together with your spouse. Is there boundaries or intentional practices you have as a couple that have been kind of, this is the ground we will die on. This is the boundaries.
Yeah. Hmm. Well, um, we're I think the thing that keeps us, I want to make sure I'm understanding and answering your question
Yes.
correctly. We're very intentional every single morning to, after the kids get them off to school, and we have coffee almost every single morning together. And it's not, um, I don't even want to say, like, we don't intentionally try. We love to be together. So we naturally love that time together. But we also do make it a priority as much as we can to just sit in the mornings and just share our hearts. And even I think at the end of the night, we try that too. Like once, the kids' homework is finished, and we try and get away. We have a few spaces in our house that we can just get together and talk, because that's what really keeps us connected, just sharing about the day and the hard parts and the good parts and what the Lord is doing and
Yeah.
everything. We're big, big communicators with each other. And I would say that's probably our number one key in our marriage, is that we have learned to share everything, like even the hardest thoughts that we've had, just and being willing to hear and not be defensive, but to have that heart of humility to hear if because honestly, we've had, yeah, like throughout the years with him traveling and doing a lot of years I was raising these little tiny kids, and he's on research and development trips or recording trips or what have you. Admittedly, yeah, those were some hard times, because it's a lot of strain on me at home and trying to support him, but to know that there is a safe place to share and not just put on a face. And you know you do that, but you have to be able to be honest with each other and have a supportive spouse who understands both sides of what it's like to be in this thing together. So I hope that answers what you wanted.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful rhythm, one we have embraced because
Yes.
we're highly communicative too.
Yeah.
And in those
Yeah.
moments are really holy moments.
And it's so important, you know, I've seen in the years I've worked in the entertainment industry, I've seen where one of the spouses is really involved in the industry and the other one's kind of, you know, just by the wayside. It's like,
Yeah.
well, your role is just to raise the kids or whatever it might be. And sometimes that doesn't end so well for a marriage.
Mhm.
But I see the people who bring their spouse into the process and not necessarily like really working at it, but just understanding what you're battling, what,
Yeah.
you know, the victories, celebrating those together, but also, you know, crying in the losses and the hard times or whatever. That
Mhm.
enriches not only your marriage, but the process of
Yeah.
working in this crazy up and down industry.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I love that.
Yeah. No,
With
I was
the film. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, if I can add to that too, I think, maybe speaking to the guys out there, again, I'm going back to something I said earlier, but I think that especially in ministry, there's this belief that the man, who has a vision leads and goes. And then there's like this almost like a martyr mentality of the spouse to just try to keep the house going and keep the dishes spinning, you know what I mean? The plates spinning. But I had a real moment in the mid 2000s where we had a good marriage, but I was blazing. I was running fast with stage productions and everything else. And I had a moment, opportunity where the Lord just really stopped me and said, "Husbands, love your wives like Christ loved the church, even giving up your life for them." And that could be like a literal life. I mean, I would take a bullet for my wife. But I think what he also meant there was like the thing that you're doing in life, the vocation, if it's getting in the way. And so I had an intentional shift to serving her and meeting her needs. And it created this incredible atmosphere and platform to launch. Because then when I had to go on a business trip, and she goes, "Honey, go. You're good at this. Keep going. Your sail, is full of wind, and you feel supported, and you're investing in the right place." And it just has this ecosystem that is fruitful because anybody can be productive, but not everybody can be fruitful. And I started to have this like fruitful calling, and she quickly became my co-producer. Like I ran everything by her, and so but you have to be intentional about it. You can't just hope for it. You got to be intentional about it. And I came home from business trips early because I could tell over the phone that she needed me. And so, I didn't do it perfectly, but that's my posture.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
the best.
I learned real early when I was touring with my comedy group. I learned the limits of how long I could be on the road,
Yeah.
and we realized we can never go over 10 days. But the beauty of what I was able to do is I guess we got popular enough where we could fly to places for
Yeah.
concerts. We didn't have to take a van.
Yep.
And we got to the point where we just said, we'll go out, we'll do Friday night, Saturday night, and then we come home. And
Yeah.
so I'm home 4 or 5 days every week, and I'm home the whole time unless we're in the studio doing an album. So it
Yeah.
was really wonderful, but you got to put those kinds of limits.
Yeah, you do.
Sometimes you don't, everybody doesn't have the opportunity to make those limits because of other reasons, but you try to make as many opportunities. And like you were sharing, Kristen, of having coffee in the morning. It's like
Yeah.
that's how you start your day, just kind of saying, okay, God, you give us another day. What do you have for us? And that's really, really, really beautiful
Yeah.
about marriage.
And like you said, Kristen, my perspective began to change where I was cheerfully sending him out because I was so excited about the reports that were coming back.
Yeah.
I knew I was a
Yeah.
part of it. And he was intentional in bringing me into his thought process, what he was learning, what he was reading. Then all of a sudden I'm reading scripts, I'm helping to edit. He created this, you probably know that, right?
Oh, yeah.
He created this space for me that, I wasn't a practitioner in the arts, although you grew up so much around it and were so much more familiar than I was. But there was an interest, and then they became an aptitude. And before
Hmm.
you know it, it became my lane. And
Interesting.
only again, I didn't do the formal way going through film school, although I taught at a film school for many years. But as time went on and I was learning more, but yeah, so
Yeah,
it's sweet when
that's
God
awesome. Yeah, and I would
shapes.
say just from her growing up in, with her dad as a visionary and entrepreneur, just, she really picked up an incredible intuition for story flow and character development and, what works, what doesn't. And it just naturally came out of her. And it was a real blessing to
Yeah.
me.
Awesome.
Um, yeah.
Hmm.
You have 4 kids, right?
Hmm.
Do any of them
Yes.
have aspirations of going into the entertainment industry?
Yeah, we have 4 kids and a son-in-law. And so our oldest that's married, she was the Oxford student studying English literature. And actually, I have a meeting with her in about a half an hour to
Oh, okay.
talk about character development in our third film that is currently in pre-production. And so she understands story structure even better than I do from an academic standpoint. But our youngest daughter is in the movie as Ben Franklin's little sister that
Oh,
comes
Oh, is
running
really?
in
that
with a
right?
yeah, that comes running in with a dog. Yeah, so
Yes.
and she loves it. She's on stage for Joshua, the stage production that opens in a month or 2 weeks. So she's pretty into the stage and screen. So
Tremendous.
Yeah.
Yes.
Talking about Ben Franklin, I knew a little bit about George Whitfield. I just
yeah,
basically knew he started the Great Awakening. He was an evangelist. I did not know his friendship with Benjamin Franklin, but in the movie, and this doesn't give anything away, Ben Franklin, who's an inventor, he prints out and distributes all of his sermons,
yeah.
Whitfield sermons. And as I'm watching the movie, I'm going, he's kind of modern day social media,
Oh yeah.
He's
Oh
getting
yeah.
it out there. Talk about the role that played in really spreading the word
Mhm.
that Whitfield was sharing throughout the
Yeah.
land.
Yeah, it's providence. It's providential. I mean, the Lord's like, I have this anointed preacher with a booming supernatural voice named George Whitfield, who is willing to go across the ocean and preach the gospel. I need to put him with somebody who can be a prolific communicator to get the word out where he's going to be. Boom, there's Ben Franklin. And so the Lord providentially put them two together. There's nobody else in the colonies that could have done for George
Mhm.
No,
Whitfield what Ben Franklin did.
exactly.
And it made Ben Franklin money, and it made the ministry of George Whitfield that much more powerful. And so he started by printing his sermons, his whereabouts, where his next revival is going to be, and then his personal journals. He printed them, and he actually built his I think his not I think I know his printing business, exploded during the Great Awakening because of those materials.
Mhm.
It's just so interesting because George Whitfield would have known about Ben Franklin over in England because of Poor Richard's Almanac and
Sure.
Yeah.
his travels over to England. So they knew there were two rock stars in two different continents, and the Lord brought them together to spark the greatest and most formative event in American history called the Great
Yeah.
Awakening.
And we love the dialogue. It was so natural, it was so authentic. I'm curious how much was actually quotes or how much was written that you pulled from, directly written.
Yeah. So Ben Franklin, I mean, there's a whole book on his quotes. I mean, not a literal book, but you could write a book on all of his quotes and quibs. And so it was not difficult to find his dialogue structure.
Yeah.
He started to write himself because, he just, he's quite a character.
Totally.
But
Yeah.
George Whitfield, he kept journals and diaries. And like, it's because of his diaries that we learned about the Bristol, England coal mine revival that's depicted in the film, where he
Yes.
set up a pulpit in the middle of a field, a coal field, coal mine region, and started to preach, and his voice penetrated the ground. And his diary says, like black ants, they came up out of the earth. And he said they came to the pulpit where he was preaching from, and Whitfield said, I could tell that the Holy Spirit was moving on them when I saw white streaks running down their blackened cheeks. So
Mm.
he kept diary and journal entries of all of his travels, and
Mhm.
we know that because Ben printed them, made books out of them. And so,
Such a
we got to know these people based on fact and not fiction. And then Sight and Sound, part of our brand is to stick to the facts as much as possible, and not fictionalize as much as, maybe what other people choose to do. So there was a lot to pull from. And I will say this, his sermons, Whitfield's sermons, John Blair, who plays the role of George Whitfield, he's also a writing partner in this film. And I said, hey, man, I said, this is what the sermons need to convey for the story that we have going on. Can you search for a Whitfield sermon that would play into this? And then we would work together. And that's exactly what he did. And he would memorize entire sermons.
Mhm.
I'm telling you that, were you there for both those days the courthouse and then the coal field?
The courthouse, not the
Courthouse.
courtfield.
When John Blair came onto set in costume, he stoic, went to his blocking and stood there, and I talked to him a little bit and said action. He went into this sermon and I stopped directing, honestly, both times at the courthouse in Philadelphia that we did in our back lot and the coal field. And everybody was just glued to what he was saying. It was so riveting and so powerful. The hardest part in the editing room was to cut anything from that sermon,
Yes.
because it's like, man, so powerful.
He was
He memorized.
amazing. He was amazing.
Yeah,
It was
stellar
riveted.
performance.
And God gave him the voice to do this.
That
because
booming
his-
voice.
as I would imagine, you know,
You got to tell
Yeah,
them about.
with coming with great authority. When people go to see the film, it comes out April 3rd. Am I right
Yep.
on that?
Yep.
When it comes out, what do you hope and pray the takeaway is?
There's a line in the film that Ben Franklin's father says to him when Ben's a little boy, and Ben says it later in the film to his grandson, and then his grandson says it back to Ben, and that's this: one tiny candle illuminates 1,000. And so, what I'm hoping is that people who watch this film will be ignited to want to proclaim liberty from their lives, from their workplace, from their ministry, and that it'll catch on, and that, heck, why not? Let's see another awakening. Like, if this can spark another great awakening, because I think Whitfield's in that cloud of witnesses, cheering us on right now, literally. And I'm thinking, what's he thinking? He spoke to 80% of the colonists from 1739 to 1770. That's a biblical definition of a generation, 30 years. An entire generation was under that umbrella of these awakenings. Him, the Wesley brothers, Jonathan Edwards. No wonder they became a self-governing people that then led into the revolution, So there's a whole generation of people under that preaching. What if pulpit, Whitfield's put back in that pulpit again? What if 80% of Americans would hear his voice once again? What if we would start a new generation of people coming in under this awakening and we actually see it happen again in this land? Why not?
Mhm.
Yes.
well, Josh, we know exactly what to pray for you for.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
It's with you on that. We'd love to see it.
I really want to encourage everyone who's listening or watching to take a friend and go see the movie. It is stellar. It is wonderful. It tells you new things that we didn't know about our founding fathers. And of course, the role of prayer and God's grace upon bringing liberty to the United States. And we will join you in prayer that God would use this to spark another great awakening.
Amen.
So we sure appreciate you guys. We love you. And thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Peggy.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us for Life Off Screen. Life Off Screen is produced by Master Media International. Our production coordinator is Nicole Spidell. Please subscribe to the Life Off Screen YouTube channel or the Life Off Screen podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love to hear from you. You can leave a comment in the comment section. To find out more about Master Media or subscribe to our newsletter, visit us at mastermedia.com. Thanks again for joining us. Hope to see you next time.